What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, the numbers are in for Nintendo, as they did reveal their entire financial report covering this past holiday season for the Switch 2. So we're going to find out exactly how many of those systems sold and how close they're getting to their 19 million projected forecast here today. Also, we are going to be talking about AMD because they gave us an update on the Steam Machine as well as Microsoft's next generation device and if they're going to be ready to support it by 2027. And GTA 6, it's supposed to be coming out at the end of this year. Well, Take-Two did decide to give us at least an idea as to if we can expect it then, and also address the rumor of physical copies and if they would be ready to go at launch. All that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, keeping you up to date with the world of gaming news. So even if there isn't a notification for you in the morning, just know there probably is a video here for you in the morning. And we're going to start today with Sony and another one of their crazy patent ideas that, you know what, doesn't actually sound like too bad of an idea for this use case. Now, we can see this. This is over on VGC, and they cite the patent, which was applied for in July 2024, granted late January 2026, titled an LLM, or large language model-based generative podcast for gamers. The problem that they're citing here, video game platforms currently lack the ability to provide unique and targeted content to gamers to provide the gamers about things that are happening on the platform. There are currently no adequate solutions to the foregoing computer-related technological problem. The solution: generate a podcast of news related to the data with the podcast presenting the news in a voice of a video game character of a video game played by the video game player. So I guess it can go into your history, see what games you've been playing recently, and then maybe when you turn, say, in Sony, your PlayStation 5 on, and it will just basically talk to you about some of the recent news that have happened, upcoming releases, and Kratos will sit down with you there and just go over all of this in his voice. It's an interesting idea. I think when people read it, they're like, a full podcast? Well, it's probably going to end up being 5 minutes or so of just spoken dialogue, advertising to you with some of these different things that you may have missed. Now, for some people who aren't as plugged in, that actually would be pretty cool, I think. And if there's a way to turn it off, great, because then who cares if they put it in? I can just toggle it off. But an interesting idea to incorporate some of the characters within Sony and then even some of the different games you've been playing to tell you about the news and other games that you should be playing. Also, here's something interesting for Resident Evil Requiem on the Switch 2, as there were hands-on events that happened and people came away quite impressed since apparently Requiem is 60 FPS on the Switch 2. In docked mode and handheld. In fact, over on IGN, they have this big heading here right in the middle of their report. Requiem shoots for a smooth 60 FPS on Switch 2, and I didn't notice any major drops. Now, we'll see about that because, you know, Digital Foundry go through this one with a fine-tooth comb, but it's still interesting because we're used to, okay, if a game's getting ported to the Switch 2, like Star Wars Outlaws or Assassin's Creed Shadows, it'll work, but they might have to cut the frame rate in half to 30. So this is something to keep an eye on with Capcom, especially with Pragmata. Apparently had similar results at these hands-on events. Capcom's going all out with the Switch 2, and Monster Hunter Wilds is another one that seems like it's set up to debut on the platform, and that I still think is the biggest challenge for them. But having Requiem day and date with the other platforms, then also turning in 60 FPS, it's gonna be one to watch. Oh, and Nintendo did just randomly announce a couple more Game Boy games going into NSO with that basic $20 a year tier. We can see this is over on their X account. Say 2 Game Boy games now available to play for NSO members. We have Yoshi and Balloon Kid. So no massive announcement here necessarily. Balloon Kid, it's funny to see that in action here because it is very simplistic. Yoshi, when I saw the cover art for that game on the Game Boy, I was not at all expecting what's kind of like a sort of a Tetris-like game almost that they're showing off there. So I mean, I was kind of disappointed with that when I got that cartridge. So I thought it was going to be a Mario game, but with Yoshi, and it wouldn't be till with like the Super Nintendo Yoshi that we got that. So I don't know, look, it's just a couple more games at least going into NSO, and if you've never experienced them, you technically can right now with your Switch or Switch 2. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and their recent financial report. This covers Q1 to Q3 for the fiscal year that will be ending March 31st, 2026. So we're working right now through the quarter, and we're almost midway through, and again, we still have some releases coming up here with Mario Tennis, and then there's Mario Brothers Wonder with that upgrade, and then there's the Pokopia, the Pokemon Stardew Valley farming Minecraft looking game. But with the holiday season there in the rearview mirror, people were very interested to see how the Switch 2 would do at its first retail holiday. All right. So we do have the numbers from Nintendo. They updated all of this overnight, and we can see this over on their investor relations page, with the Switch 2 now sitting at 17.37 million units. Okay, so important to note, as they did give us more information around this, these would be shipped units, so shipped out to retail stores and everything. Typically, there is a sell-through number that is less that they did share with us. We'll get to in a second. But as I've talked to you guys before about shipped numbers, that's the easiest thing for Nintendo to track because they don't take these things back, all right? Retailers buy them from Nintendo, and Nintendo says, thank you, and that's all. They take the money and have fun trying to sell these Switch 2 systems, which it seems like the retailers have not been having a hard time necessarily. We have seen discounts and stuff on them for the holiday season, but the sell-through at this time is 15 million. So it seems like the stock that's going out is actually keeping up for the most part and finding its way to different customers. All right, great news there for Nintendo because then they'll just keep shipping more and more out to retailers. Okay, so this past holiday season with Q3 hardware, just over 7 million units shipped out. Now, that is a little under what the Switch 1 did in its first holiday season. That was about 7.25 or so million units. But again, you know, with the Switch 2 being significantly more expensive now at retail, when you take it from a revenue perspective, it's quite a bit more. And at 17.37 million units, remember that was done in about 7 months. All right, so the start of June all the way to the end of December, so December 31st, 2025, able to reach that mark is quite impressive and makes sense why we keep hearing places like Circana is the fastest selling system in that region, in that market. And I think that's what we're just seeing across the board here now with these numbers pretty much cementing. I mean, look, it's already outsold the Wii U in less than 7 months. That's, it's sad for the Wii U, but also very impressive for Nintendo. Now their forecast has not changed. So they're still aiming for 19 million Switch 2 systems sold by March 31st, 2026. And I think not only they're going to meet that, I'm kind of thinking they're going to surpass it. I'm curious. Pokopia is kind of the wild card right now. I will admit I'm not sure how that's going to do. I want to say it's going to do pretty well because it's Pokemon, but it's also such a strange offshoot game that's very experimental for them. It's not something they typically do, but I don't know. It could do well. Maybe that's one that does hold up some of the market there for Nintendo as they work towards the end of this fiscal year. But impressive stuff there for Nintendo with the Switch 2. I think it'll not only surpass 19 million in this current fiscal year, but most likely in its first calendar year. Remember, that'll go until the first week of June of this year. I'm thinking it's going to be 21 or 22 million, and that is wild stuff for year one for a system, just outright. Now, of course, there is still the Switch 1 that we got some updated figures on. So for Q3, 1.36 million units sold. That means total for the fiscal year, 3.25 million. It seems like they haven't messed with the forecast there. They're still expecting to hit 4 million for the Switch 1 total. So they still need about another 750,000 units to ship this current quarter that we're in. The lifetime, though, 155.37 million units. It has surpassed the DS. It is now officially the best-selling system that Nintendo has ever released, overtaking the DS there, and still a bit shy of the PS2. A lot of controversy there with Sony raising the numbers for the PS2 there kind of out of nowhere not too long ago. But I mean, if they were trying to get ahead of the Switch, getting close to it, there you go. They at least planned out accordingly there. Will the Switch be able to get to the PS2 numbers, that's hard to say. I did a video last night reflecting on the Switch 1 and a few other aspects to Nintendo's financial report, so if you want to see more about that, check it out. It's interesting to see the path forward for Nintendo in 2026, and why, to be honest, there are many investors and analysts that are a bit concerned about Nintendo cutting it kind of close here. Not necessarily with them trying to get to the PS2, but also some of the profit margins and, of course, the things going on behind the scenes with DRAM and prices and supply. It is a whole mess right now. Anyway, let's talk about some games. Mario Kart World, just over 14 million of these things have sold. Now, keep in mind, it was bundled in, so it did have its numbers, I'm sure, inflated from that, but still, I mean, 14 million, that's quite impressive. I mean, it's Mario Kart, though, and we saw what Mario Kart 8 did the entire way through the Switch 1's generation, so maybe this shouldn't be too surprising. Donkey Kong Bonanza at 4.25 million. Pokemon Legends ZA, 3.89 million. Also, it's important to note that the Pokemon Legends ZA on the Switch 1 cleared 8.25, so this ZA was just over 12 million when you combined both, and that, again, pretty impressive there for Pokemon Legends. It's pretty much almost even with Arceus. Arceus a little ahead currently if you launch align them. Kirby Air Riders, 1.76 million. I feel like that's good. I mean, that's outsold the GameCube version already at that. That's actually, I think, above the expectations I had set for Kirby Air Riders. So, I mean, good news there for Sakurai and his team and Nintendo on that one. Now, let's talk about a couple of omissions here. Metroid Prime 4, it's not mentioned. And so that means that because the way that Nintendo's tracking all of this, they split up their different SKUs. So that means that the Switch 1 SKU or the Switch 2 SKU did not reach 1 million units sold just separately there. There's also a whole thing with how they count upgrade paths, and it's very weird currently. But the bottom line is, we'll just say even the Switch 2 version didn't get to 1 million sold, all right? So they didn't report it. So we'll have to see, maybe, I don't know, maybe next quarter or the quarter after, we'll hear something about it. But at least for now, it's not great news for Metroid Prime 4 to be in a position where it didn't even get reported on because it wasn't able to hit what has become a pretty standard mark for Nintendo to get to with any of their releases in the first quarter. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment was also not here, but that's because Koei Tecmo has been handling some of the reporting on this. They did say earlier it did pass 1 million units sold, so at least Hyrule Warriors is rolling along there. For the Switch 1, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, 70.59 million sold. That is insane that it's gotten to that number. Then we have Animal Crossing New Horizons at 49.32 million, Smash Brothers at 37.44, Breath of the Wild at 33.64, and then Mario Odyssey at 30.27. So bottom line, what does all of this mean? The Switch 2 is selling very, very fast, and it's what we've kind of expected, and some people were surprised by this, but I think what Nintendo told us with their forecast with the 19 million is basically what they expect to be able to ship out. I don't think they have any thought of, oh, retailers won't want these if we just make them available. It's very clear Nintendo is going crazy trying to get as many Switch 2 systems out there into the marketplace. And I don't know, some people seem surprised that people want to buy these things. But as I've mentioned before, a $450 Switch 2, as we're looking around just by standing still at that mark, has become like the cheap system, which it's crazy to think that $450 is just cheap nowadays. I guess the Xbox Series is $400, but Xbox isn't really talked about much at all in terms of the hardware side. We see them declining constantly. So at least for systems that are selling rapidly, it's like there's the Switch 2, there's the PlayStation 5, and well, the hybrid system is viewed as even more valuable because it's a handheld and then also a console. So with that in mind, where we're kind of expected to see consoles come out in different price ranges, the Switch 2 actually fits in nicely. So I think it's going to cross that 19 million mark pretty easily. And now my thought process is how far past that 19 million can they hit? Because Pocopia, that to me is still the one I'm keeping an eye on to see how it's going to do. What about reverberating effects of if they do indeed announce Pokemon Gen 10? Some might go, hey, you know what? I guess it is time to buy that Switch 2 finally, because that's the only way I'm going to play this new Pokemon game. So still a lot of questions to be answered here as we work through the rest of their fiscal year, and we'll find out more when they're ready to talk about all of that with the big fiscal year in review, and they'll do a whole Q&A with investors. But we're still a couple of months off from all of that happening. But at least for now, seems like the Switch 2 is rolling along as expected. Next up, let's talk about the Steam Machine and the next-gen Xbox. There's been a lot of concern that the Steam Machine could end up getting delayed because, again, of a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. And the Steam Machine has 16 gigabytes of DDR5 and 8 gigabytes of VRAM for its video card. So that alone, people are like, well, that's a small fortune at this time. So can Valve make this work? And will they be able to release it early 2026, which is where we are right now? Okay, well, AMD did chime in on this. And again, they also talked about the next-gen Xbox, but let's see their statement here. Now, this was when talking with investors. And during this time, Lisa Su was, yes, of course, talking a lot about AI data centers and all the deals they're making there because that's what investors want to hear. But there is some stuff they have, consumer-facing products, and they mentioned from a product standpoint, Valve is on track to begin shipping its AMD-powered Steam Machine early this year. And development of Microsoft's next-gen Xbox featuring AMD semi-custom SoC is progressing well to support a launch in 2027. So for the next-gen Xbox, they are saying they're prepared to support a 2027 launch, seemingly if Microsoft is ready to support a 2027 launch. And I think there's still a lot of stuff Microsoft is figuring out from the software side and certainly compatibility side, because figuring out how to make all of those older Xbox games work not only on your console, but I mean, just by proximity, your PC, since they're going to be running this same environment apparently across multiple different devices. That sounds crazy. That sounds like a ton of work. And while AMD, it's not easy to make a chip, surely a semi-custom chip and everything, I do kind of look more towards Microsoft software engineering as, that they got their work cut out for them, and that's going to be the thing that could hold all of this up. But AMD, it seems like they're ready to go for 2027 launch holiday, I guess. And that means, yeah, we're going to roll through this holiday, and then by the next holiday season, maybe a new Xbox will be out there. But I also do think it lines up with what I believe to be Microsoft capping off the 25th anniversary of Xbox, where they tell us what's next for Xbox. So there we go. I guess we can look forward to 2027 for maybe a new system from Microsoft. But as for the Steam Machine, which is what people have been very curious about, Valve's been quiet for a bit, but I kind of feel like they're going to be waking up here soon. Early 2026 is kind of now. I mean, that's where we are. So this kind of sounds like Valve is at least ready to go. And the question mark is going to be the price, because if this is, as AMD is saying, hey, look, they're ready. It's not getting delayed. They've probably worked out the price behind the scenes, at least for the initial batch. And that's not really the concern. It's what happens a couple months, a year from release. Are we going to have to raise the price? Because if so, we might as well just go to market with that price we're going to have to raise to anyway. But still, this is just good news all the way around for the Steam Machine, because people at this time just want to hear when it's coming out and that price point. It seems like AMD is hinting towards that happening pretty soon, since, well, it's shipping early 2026. We're in early 2026, so hopefully Valve is ready to get moving, not only with the Steam Machine, but maybe some kind of launch game. You know, that fabled Half-Life game that's out there somewhere. That'd be a fun day online, and hopefully Valve is just about ready to make that happen. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Take-Two and GTA 6, because they had a lot to say during their recent investor call, and Take-Two is doing well as expected, but everyone knows when GTA 6 launches, it's gonna be massive. I mean, it probably will be the biggest release in entertainment history, just across the board, very similar to what happened with GTA 5. Well, Strauss Zelnick did have a bit to say about when we can expect the game, which we're thinking it's coming out in November. That's the date they've set for it in that month. And then also about physical copies and if they will be available at launch. Okay, so let's start here. Now, this is with IGN, and they got a press release from Take-Two. And at the bottom, it says, our execution throughout fiscal 2026 has been extraordinary, and we are highly confident as we approach fiscal 27, which promises to be groundbreaking for Take-Two and the entire entertainment industry, led by the November 19th release of Grand Theft Auto 6, with Rockstar's launch marketing set to begin this summer. So there you have it. I mean, it seems like it's all lining up. November, I mean, they're doubling down on this now in February, to where they're saying, yeah, we're going to start this summer with marketing. Well, that's not that far away. It's months away, but months in terms of marketing and business and planning out a launch for November, it happens fast. So with all that in mind, I mean, it's exciting stuff because GTA 6, I kind of feel like, yes, is completely locked in November. I don't think they want it to fall out of another fiscal year, like end up sometime in late holiday 2027. You keep just damaging fiscal year after fiscal year doing that. Eventually they got to get this game out there. And then, once they do, they can just kind of ride this release for what'll probably end up being 15 to 20 years. Let's be real. This might be their forever game with the GTA Online component. But the other thing that we had talked about previously was the rumor of a physical copy not being there at launch because they're concerned about leaks getting out there. Well, this was also addressed, we can see. This was Variety, where Strauss Zelnick was addressing all of the online rumors that have spread about the possibility of Rockstar delaying the release of physical copies of GTA 6 until 2027 in order to avoid the leaks, which will debut November 19th. That's not the plan, according to Strauss Zelnick. So there we go. We have GTA 6. It seems like it's all but locked in and confirmed what they're saying here, talking directly to investors. But then also with Variety, yeah, there will be a physical copy at launch. And look, I think it's pretty obvious to everyone that they are looking at that PS5 thinking, well, that's where the install size is. So that's what we're really going to push towards. And having the 100 gigabyte Blu-ray with the PS5, I'm kind of thinking that's going to be the move for the physical copy, but maybe they ship on multiple discs for the Xbox Series. That's always a possibility there. And I'm excited to see what GTA 6 ends up being. There's so many questions still around this game, and to think that we may be a couple of months away from marketing starting up, which, yes, trailers, appearances, I'm sure, and maybe at other events. We'll see with Summer Game Fest about that, but maybe a Sony State of Play, and surely all kinds of videos and deep dives that Rockstar will release leading up to that launch. So exciting stuff there, not only for GTA fans, but I think just most people in gaming who are curious about what is about to happen with GTA 6. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you currently own a Switch 2? Okay, 61% say yes, 39% say no. When I was looking through the comments, and there are many people who are like, no, I need one or two big games. I'm looking for a Mario. I'm looking for the next big Pokemon game. I'm looking for Zelda, anything like that. And that is fair because that's what we expect to sell systems, big time releases. But the fact that 61% have bought in is interesting. And I do think there is the thought process of, I like the Switch 1. I want a better Switch 1. Oh, here's the Switch 2. And that's it. Also, a lot of the people who are watching, very plugged in, I'm sure, and interested in being early adopters for different hardware. As I've run the PS5, I think the Xbox is the one that typically gets more no's than yes. PS5 got basically about this as well. It might have been a little more in terms of yes, no, but there's also about to be, we'll see the report, 90 million PlayStation 5 systems out there now. So for the Switch 2 though, yeah, I think we're going to see sales continue to ramp up, especially if there really is a big new 3D Mario game set for later this holiday. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Zen, who says, I wonder what the PS5 adoption rate would look like if it trended down in price like consoles used to do instead of up in price. So I think with something like the PlayStation 5, it very quickly has become kind of the default console for people, mostly because Microsoft just stopped putting up a fight and there's whatever, we'll just put our games on PlayStation. Who cares at this point? We're just trying to cash in on revenue for the software side. But I think if Sony had at least been able to lower their price, let's say the PlayStation 5 right now, you can even say the digital version without disc drive, but it's the PS5 starting at $200. I think there'd be many people who go, you know what? Maybe I will get a second PS5 system. I do think that kind of unlocks the idea of maybe multiple PlayStation 5 consoles per household, whether it's for the bedroom or a living room or just an extra spare bed, something like that. It's like, yeah, I will get another one to make it a bit more convenient when playing in one room versus the other. But at this time, like $500, $550, or the $750 PlayStation 5 Pro, I just don't think it's necessarily in that territory at this time. But who knows? Maybe in the future, Sony can figure something out to get it much, much cheaper, especially when the PS6 arrives, and then it might be something that at least holds up what would typically be a curve for sales that crash completely. Maybe that's a way for the PS5 to continue making a run towards, I don't know, because I think it's going to pass the PS4 pretty easily. I don't know if it's gonna make a run for the PS2, but sit somewhere between the PS4 and the PS2. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card, or maybe you wanted to hear more about Nintendo cutting it kind of close, not only with the Switch versus the PS2 sales, but also some of their current margins that could show why the Switch 2 probably isn't dropping in price anytime soon, and in fact, could go up in price just based on what analysts and even investors are mostly concerned about. I'll leave that right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.